Okay, we're going to go over some Mcas questions. So, demonstrating how I would find them. So first to framework, so science and technology. Then I hit biology, high school course. And let's start with chemistry of life. And I'm going to leave question type all, but I could pick multiple choice or open response. And those are the only two choices we have for bio. Okay, so then get results. Okay, so down we go. All right, this is a great one to start with. And if you'll notice, they tell us what standard it is. So it's the main unit that we were learning. And so that'll give you a clue about what the question is about. So you can see our CHNOPS right there. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. So this is a question about remembering that living things are made up of those elements on the periodic table. So for this video, I definitely recommend that you pause after I read the question so that you can think of the answer, and then I'll explain the answer. And I'm just going to go through a handful of them just to remind you about how to think through the Mcas questions. So peptidoglycan is a compound in the cell walls of many bacteria. Which of the following elements are most abundant in peptidoglycan? You don't know what peptidoglycan is right now. It doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter whether you even remember what bacteria is right now, as long as you remember CHNOPS. So it's very common to see words you don't know anything about on Mcas. So don't let those things throw you. Focus on what you do know. So if you know CHNOPS and it's a living thing, what's it going to be made of? So you could pause right here before you answer the question. And the answer, of course, is B, carbon and hydrogen, because living things are made of CHNOPS. So they're going to be made of carbon. Living things are made of carbon. Okay, so that's a very common living things kind of question. And here's a great enzyme question. So first of all, I'm not going to go through a ton of enzyme questions, but remember that here's the beauty, okay? This is what enzymes are. We talked about this. Enzymes are catalysts. Okay, they're proteins. Enzymes are proteins that speed up chemical reactions. So they speed things up by lowering the activation energy. So it's as if instead of a mountain being a reaction, it's now a hill. So it just doesn't take very much for it to happen anymore. And the things that can affect it are pH and temperature, right? So, all right, which of the following will most likely change when an enzyme is added to a reaction? The pH, the rate of reaction, the products of reaction, or the temperature? So what's the main thing enzymes do? Okay, so it's B, the rate of reaction. Enzymes speed. Enzymes speed things up. So they're affected by the pH and they're affected by how much stuff there is, the products, and they're affected by temperature. But what enzymes do is speed things up. Okay. Moving on along. Here's a great one. Fructose, sucrose, and starch are all examples of what? If you said proteins, you're wrong. So what is it? Carbohydrates, of course. Sugars, okay? Starch. Because ose is a big clue. When things end with ose, they're sugars. And we know starch, like potatoes, carbohydrates. Okay, so those are some typical chemistry of life questions. So moving out of that unit, let's go to cell biology. results. Okay. All right, so for a question like this, where it says view module introduction, you need to click the PDF to take a look at it because it's got a picture attached to it, just so you know how to use those. Some of these may be beyond us because we haven't done everything. And here's an open response one. Here's some virus questions. There's a good one. Okay. Which of the following statements describes a difference between how viruses reproduce and how cells reproduce? Because viruses, remember, are they considered cells? I kind of asked a leading question there. No, they're not, because they're not considered living things. So read your choices. And what did you get? Okay, so the answer is D. Viruses need to enter a living cell to reproduce, but cells reproduce on their own. Okay, so that's the big thing about viruses, is that they're not considered living things because they cannot reproduce on their own. Oh, here's one that's, my favorite topic. During exercise, a person's muscles need a constant supply of ATP. What's ATP? Energy. To meet this need, the rate of which of the following processes increases? Hint, hint. This is one I have been drilling into you forever. Cellular respiration. Yes, of course. You get a gold star. Okay? Hopefully you remember cellular respiration. If not, I have a review video on that. Make sure you know that one really well, because you know that it pains me if you don't. Okay, there's 112 cellular biology questions, so lots of them. It's probably the biggest topic in here, maybe genetics. Okay, look, all these fancy Latin names. A scientist is studying gene expression in a prokaryote. Which of the following organisms could the scientist be studying? Do you think they expect you to know these Latin names? No, of course not. Of course not. But you should be able to tell what a prokaryote is by the word after it. So which is it? You should know the difference between a prokaryote and a eukaryote. Because which are you? Which one are you? Hint, hint. Okay, so a prokaryote, of course, is a bacteria. Okay, for our midterm, we're not studying mitosis. We're doing mitosis after the midterm. So chromosomes, those questions after the midterm. Okay, active and passive transport, you do have to know. Photosynthesis, you just need to know the basics of photosynthesis and cell respiration, which we've talked about. So photosynthesis is most likely to occur in which of the following cells? So what cells do photosynthesis? Right, you're looking for a plant cell. So which of these is a plant cell? Right, B. You can probably hear my dog barking. That's my older dog. She barks about coming upstairs. Okay, moving on. Trying to find a couple key questions from each topic and not make this video terribly long. I'm almost at 10 minutes. Okay. Prokaryote question. Ah, here's a good one with photosynthesis, cell respiration in one question. Which of the following statements describes a difference between photosynthesis and cellular respiration in plants? Think about it. Think about it. Okay, so how do you think this through? Okay, so even if you don't know a whole lot of details, okay, about photosynthesis, number of reactions, or anything like that, you know that I've probably taught you enough to answer this question, right? So it is C. Okay, photosynthesis occurs in cells containing chlorophyll, the green ones, right? Because chlorophyll is the one that's important for that reaction. Cellular respiration occurs in all cells. Wherever there's mitochondria, that's where it's going to happen. Okay. And I think we had this question on our test on prokaryotes and eukaryotes, and you had to decide which it was. And how can you tell? Does it have organelles? It's single-celled, but it has organelles. So what's the deal? Right, it's a eukaryote because it has organelles. So it's probably a protist. Probably living in a pond. Okay? So I think we hit a bunch of the biggies there. Okay, review your organelles. Okay, so go through a bunch of these questions about the functions of organelles. Look at the standard. Okay, the standard wants you to know these functions of these organelles, which we have in a chart. Okay, and then membrane, the functions of a membrane: diffusion, osmosis, facilitated diffusion, and active transport. So those are the things you have to know, but review your organelles. All right, so I'm trying to keep this kind of quick, and I'm at 12 minutes. So let's go to some very, very quick anatomy questions. And we spent a lot of time on digestion, and we've been talking about the respiratory system the entire year. Okay. We're going to spend a lot more time on anatomy. All right, so here's digestion. Oh, I gave something away, right? All right, so parts are numbered in the system. So what's number 1? I'm not going to go down to the picture there. So number 1, esophagus. Number 2, stomach. Number 3, small intestine. Okay, number 4, okay, the rectum. And what's this organ right here? I think you can see my mouse, pretty sure. Okay, that would be the large intestine. Okay, so that would be the path of food. Okay. Hormones we're going to get more into, but we talked about them quite a bit when we were going over the sex hormones. So that's all part of the endocrine system, which we will talk more about. Okay. Homeostasis. Okay. We've been talking about that for a long time too, because in the beginning of the year we talked about it being a basic part of being alive. So which of these is the best example of maintaining homeostasis? So the heart beats using cardiac muscle, the breathing rate increases during exercise, the nose and ears contain cartilage for flexibility, the digestive system uses enzymes to break down food. So which of those do you think is homeostasis? Okay, it's a B. The breathing rate increases during exercise. Okay, so it's how our body responds to changes internally or externally. Okay, remember that it's not putting a sweater on when it's cold, it's the way our body responds, our anatomy responds. Okay, human nervous system. So, which are the following parts of the human nervous system? C, the neuron, brain, and spinal cord. Okay, the alveoli, remember we've talked a lot about because it's where gas exchange occurs, CO2 and O2. Because why do we breathe? Yeah, I know, to stay alive, but remember where that oxygen needs to go. needs to get to every cell of your body so it can get to the mitochondria. And then what is the mitochondria going to do with it? Cell respiration. And then CO2 will come back out, go across the cell membrane. How? Did you say simple diffusion? Yes. Okay, and then through the bloodstream, across the alveoli, and then we breathe out. Okay, so I hope this quick review has showed you how to use this site a little bit. Oh, here's how you can just show the answer here on the page you're on, okay? And also shows you how many people got it right in the year they gave this test, which I always find interesting, because you can bet that if the question state average was really low, then they kind of dumped that question for that year. And you can show the answers, student answers for the open response that way too if you don't know the answer. So I hope this was helpful and that you're studying hard and that you do great on all your exams. I wish you all well. Have a good night.